Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Nukes Hazard podcast. I'm Mike Bradley.
I'm Sarah Bradley.
I'm Rob Whelan. My better half, Susanna, is not here today.
And I've invited my friend Kevin Fuller to join us to talk about his career in data centers. But we want to start off with the news. So,
Well, welcome, Kevin. We're glad you're here.
thank you, Kevin.
Thanks for coming, Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin's in. You're in Atlanta right now.
That's right. Yep.
Atlanta, Austin, and middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. So there we go. So
Gosh, we're making a perfect triangle today.
exactly. So
All right, y'all. We got jam-packed episode as always. Want to talk about some news, nuclear reactor news that is coming out. Talk about some submarine news that actually just happened this week with a pretty cool new class of submarines. And then want to spend a lot of our time today talking about data centers with Kevin and the great expertise that he brings to this. So why don't we dive in to our news? Rob, what's going on with Aalo Atomics?
Yeah. So, Kevin, if you need to, power up one of your data centers, I know a company you can talk to. So the big news in nuclear last week was Aalo Atomics, a designer and manufacturer of small modular reactors, closed their Series B, which means their second major financing round, $100 million. So their total financing is up to, I think, $123 million. They started hiring 20 months ago. And I've been to their factory here in Austin. It's giant. It's something like 40,000 square feet. And the team is stellar. And just so everyone knows, I'm doing some work for Aalo right now, so I'm a little bit biased. And but I will share with you sort of the plans of this that are public. A couple of weeks ago, and I think we mentioned this in our last podcast, the Department of Energy selected 11 reactors to go critical by next 4th of July. Critical means start the nuclear fission reaction, which is like starting a car, but not pressing the gas. I stole that analogy directly from Matt Lozak, who's the CEO of Aalo. But basically, that really hasn't happened for a commercial small modular reactor in this kind of setting ever. So it's a really big, ambitious plan for our industry and for the country. And Aalo is really gung ho about it. And the timing of this Series B couldn't be better for them. They want to build a reactor with it, and they're kind of all hands on deck. So the idea here is at this point, it's 11 months, build a small modular reactor, start fissioning, and demonstrate the safety. Now, they're also going to build a small data center next to it. I don't know many plans for like how that works, but really it's their market promise of like these reactors are built to power data centers. And that's something we're going to talk a lot with you, Kevin. And if you kind of check it online, there's pictures of them. I think yesterday they broke ground, like they got the shovels and the branded helmets and everything.
Classic. Yeah. Wow.
They're doing a great job online.
I
So yeah, that's the news.
they're funded by Valor Equities. Does that add any connection to Valor Atomics at all?
I don't think so, because they're considered competitors.
Yeah,
I doubt it's related.
Yeah, just kind of an interesting adjective for both things. So
Incredible the speed that this is all going.
That's it.
I mean, it's the end of August. We've got this July deadline of next year that the administration put into place. Like, this is fast.
It's fast. You're totally right, Sarah. And in this press release, Matt points that out. The vibe around nuclear is it's kind of slow, and Aalo's team spirit is like, we want to be fast, and they really do move fast, and I think they're going to do it. So it's really exciting. They've been in the news a lot of support on X and LinkedIn. It's a lot of fun. Just the momentum keeps building. So Coming to a data center near you is nuclear power. That's
Yeah.
for Aalo.
And for our nukes that are watching this, I don't want to say Series B is always when it gets real, but like Series B is, you could see that the Series A funding might have been, I don't know, Rob, throw out numbers for me for a Series A fund. I guess it all depends on why you're building, but like, Series A funding probably was a lot of I'll say friends and family, but people not.
Well, you're still making a bet. You're like taking a bet on the team. Now they've proven what they can do. They've got some major wins. They've got good partnerships. They've got a great team, and this is real money.
Yeah.
I remember $100 million is what we had at General Electric to just design the ESBWR in 2009. 100 million a year, and it didn't. I mean, it got a design certification, which means you can build it, but it never got built. So, but this is a pretty nimble team, and really across the board for SMRs. It's going to be the smaller, nimble teams being creative with their materials and their design and making things happen fast. It's pretty exciting.
All right, so our second story, Rob's going to share his screen, was 2 days ago on August 27th. We're recording this on the 29th. The new the second of the Columbia class had its keel authenticated, which involved, I guess, some welding and some pictures, but it is the SSBN 827. And the keel was authenticated on 8/27, August 27th. So the first Columbia class, it's well on its way. Lots of design. A lot of people I know worked on the design of that, and putting it into practice. It's going to replace the Ohio class, which is what Rob and I were on, and so this is the second one, and it's and the Columbia class is not Columbia, South Carolina. It's named after the District of Columbia, which the new kind of nomenclature used to be boomers were states and fast attacks were cities. Now it's kind of intermixed. Like Virginia has some different stuff, but it reminded me of a thing, a gripe that I have that you, my two submarine brethren, can share. Did you know that people that were on some of the earlier classes of submarines actually got a day to celebrate? Like if you were on a submarine that was 731 down to 701, you had
a day.
July. Yeah. So,
But if you're at the 741 like I was, there's no celebration.
There's no celebration, right? Kevin, you were on 740 something and
757 and 765. So
yeah, no celebration for you. You're just in refit.
Yeah, for us non-Navy people, Kevin, what boats were you on? What submarines were you on?
so I was a JO on the Alexandria 757, and I was a department head on the Montpelier 765.
Okay, and so Kevin, those were both fast attack submarines.
Doesn't he look tougher than Rob and I?
Okay, so fast.
What we didn't even have to say that.
No, seriously. For those not watching on video, Kevin looks tougher than Mike and Rob. But the fast attack submarines are the ones that do not have nuclear missiles on them. Just like a reminder. So talk to us for a second. What this Columbia class, like what makes a Columbia class? What is this?
Well, I can't go too deep on the Columbia class. I know it's the new class of submarines. It's going to be way more modular. To the fact that if you want to have the type of missiles that were on Rob and I's boats, the intercontinental ballistic missiles, you'll be able to have that. And if you want to have, traditional, more Tomahawk type missiles, you'll be able to do that. I think it's going to be like there were giant overhauls that took Rob and I's type of boats, the Ohio class submarines, and turned them into ones that were able to shoot Tomahawk missiles, like which just happened over in Iran. So the newer class will have a lot more means and ability to do that. And I mean, they haven't totally disclosed what they're all going to do. But I just the fact that the keel was laid on its its date, which actually is a real date. August 27th is a real date. There is no, 736. There's no July 36. It just it's brought back a complaint that I had or jealousy that I had that people get to celebrate their submarine day. I guess I have a time. I get 7:36 every day is West Virginia time. So there you go. Yeah.
It's their old man gripes for sure.
Yeah.
But very exciting to see the second boat in this class come out.
Yeah.
Because
And
it's great stuff. Hopefully for the men and women serving that, they're on these brand new boats.
Yeah,
all
and there's
kinds of capability.
there's some pretty cool ones that have at least been ordered. That they're of the Virginia class, but they're redoing the famous World War II ones named after fish. The USS Bard, the USS Wahoo, famous Admiral Fluckey submarine. Also, they're going to represent Brooklyn. Brooklyn will be represented. The USS Brooklyn and Long Island, where our sons are going to school, will be represented.
Yeah,
It's going to be kind of cool. So a little submarine segue here in the middle of Nukes Hazard.
Yeah, let's shift gears and let's talk about our guest Kevin Fuller from Microsoft. Thanks so much for being with us today. We talk a lot in this podcast about data centers, like tangentially, but it's great to have you here to help us understand what these things are, what this means for like the general user, and then what this means for people who are in the nuclear community, maybe people, who Mike work with who are looking for a job, or people like, that Rob is working with who are looking to help power these things. So glad you could be with us. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to get the opportunity to talk to y'all.
Yeah. So Kevin, we met when you were a lieutenant commander, Horse Board, and decided you were going to finish off your career in the reserve. Oh, Kevin's a reservist too, so thank you for your continued service to our Navy. And you decided to move your career to the reserve flavor. And why did you decide to get into data centers?
Well, yeah, so when I had made the decision to transition away from active duty, I was looking around and learning about the civilian workforce and just what options were. And I didn't even know what a data center was until I started talking to other people that had transitioned out and learned about what they were doing. And I mean, commercial nuclear power is kind of an obvious thing to go into from a nuclear propulsion background in the Navy. But I learned that a lot of people with our kinds of experience from the Navy are very well prepared to take on a career in data center operations. Because what a data center is really is, think about it like a warehouse full of the computer servers that make up the cloud. And so those servers require very high levels of reliability in terms of the electrical power and the cooling systems that service them. And so as Navy Nukes, that's really what we're all about is power and cooling. So, I mean, I've over the course of working at a couple companies now, I've worked with dozens of other folks with Navy Nuke backgrounds. And I mean, in a lot of senses, the building is like a ship that doesn't go anywhere. You're keeping the power and the cooling on for these computer servers that are running workloads and applications for businesses that are all over the world. It's really high level stuff for things like financial institutions and e-commerce and like really critical things, airlines, that when these computer systems go down, there's a real heavy impact around the world. And that's why they love for people with a very strong background in rigorous operations, procedure compliance, that kind of stuff. And that's what Navy Nukes bring to the table.
So, so you said it powers the cloud. By that, we could say like the internet, like if you're using anything on the internet, it's all the computers that power the internet. So all your apps, TikTok, Facebook, whatever, and anything you use for work, it's talking to computers in data centers. And I think what Kevin's saying is like, if you're at the airport and you can't like check in at that kiosk, it's Kevin's fault. So we're just phone number up here. Great.
I was thinking of saying like we should tell all our teams, Rob, that Kevin runs TikTok.
We talked to the TikTok guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's gonna keep it.
Kevin keeps TikTok going, like those low taper fade memes. Like that's Kevin, So
Thanks, Kevin. Contributions.
Yeah.
So I can't talk about like specific customers or anything, of course. No proprietary stuff.
Are you willing to say, or is there any cleared stuff that you've ever worked on?
I have not personally, but I mean, across all the cloud providers, the Pentagon and other federal agencies have air-gapped cloud services and contracts with several different companies that, I mean, if you imagine the unclassified internet that everybody has access to, there's a classified internet that only the Pentagon and 3-letter agencies have access to.
That's so cool. I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure Mike and Sarah do too. So we're just gonna hit you with it. If you guys want to take it in a different direction, please do.
Yeah, Rob, you go. I've been talking a lot. Go.
No, Amazon has data centers, Google has data centers, Microsoft has data centers. But what about sort of the independent data? Like there's data centers being built in Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, around Austin, where I live, that don't necessarily have like the Amazon logo on it. How does that work? If someone like a non-Google builds a data center, does Google like contract out some of those servers ever? Or like if you're not Google, Amazon, Microsoft, why would you build a data center?
So there are a lot of different business models, depending on kind of the workloads or the applications where you may need to have your company's proprietary server equipment in the data center, but then maybe
So like a hospital, maybe?
yeah, and so maybe you don't need to own and run the building though. You're okay with the building being owned and operated by someone else who's essentially your landlord. And so that's what a lot of these data center operators are, is they have a landlord tenant kind of relationship with enterprise IT companies.
Yeah. Okay.
That's super cool.
So it's not necessarily like spillover from Google. Hey, Google, I need some more capacity somewhere. It's legit like it's proprietary servers that people just don't want to own, which is kind of the original data center idea before the cloud came along.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So Kevin, you're in Atlanta, and Atlanta, big city, lots of people in Atlanta that need server space for their businesses and whatever, from airports, banks, businesses, whatever. There's a lot of data centers in Northern Virginia, and it was my understanding there's a lot of data centers in Northern Virginia because there's a lot of crossroads of the internet, the fiber, and everything like that. Is the information that's stored at a data center information that's like the closest to the data center, or could you be housing information and stuff from something from Seattle or something like that? Is it like electricity where it pulls kind of from closest off the grid, or how does the data work in that regard?
So it depends what individual end users need the data to be used for, where it needs to be with respect to where they are running those workloads. So for stuff that's super low latency, like online gaming, where it really matters. I mean, you've got fiber optic cable running between data centers all over the country and all over the world. And if the milliseconds between a signal getting from this side of the country to that side of the country matter for you and what you're doing, then you need that server to be close to you. If it doesn't, then maybe it's somewhere else that's not necessarily as close by. It just kind of depends on the application.
Really? Okay. I never thought of
So-
that with like.
Oh yeah.
video-
Well, when my kids played Fortnite, they would obsess over the ping, I think they called it, and they would flip out if the ping was too high. I've got a 14 millisecond ping. I'm gonna lose this Fortnite battle.
Really? I never. My kids weren't. Maybe my kids weren't smart enough to realize about the latency stuff or whatever. So we also
Sweet way of saying you didn't let your kids play video games, and you're
No, we just but we put the video games like very far away from well, because like Sarah's, the Wi-Fi was paid for by her company, so we put the kids as far away from the Wi-Fi as possible.
So some people tell me, well, I don't really want to use ChatGPT or AI because the queries take up a lot of water or electricity. So can you compare like a GPU and a CPU? What are those things, and why does a GPU take more electricity, and why are they, and just how much, and like how much heat does it produce, and what do you do with the heat?
So a CPU, central processing unit, that's essentially what's in your laptop. It's going back decades now for serial computation, like central processing unit is running the workloads in every kind of server that is doing anything online. A GPU, graphics processing unit, was adapted to AI from processors that were originally intended and designed for supporting computer games. So being able to do a lot of very complex and energy intensive computations in parallel with the same card, rather than having to do all the computations in series like a CPU does, it kind of, as you can imagine, significantly more energy intensive. And so you're talking about potentially like an order of magnitude more electrical power that a GPU is drawing than a CPU is drawing. So that's the electrical power piece. And then as you're running a data center, if your cooling method that you employ uses water, then as you're pulling heat off of that IT equipment, you're using correspondingly more water to cool the facility and cool those chips.
So I had a super interesting conversation yesterday about this very thing. I'm curious where the heat goes, and I talked to a guy who had installed HVAC systems for data centers, and he says in some of the data centers there's so much heat they used to dispel the heat into a body of water nearby, but he said it's just so much heat that they're just putting it into the air now. Otherwise, and he was exaggerating, but they would like boil the pond. Talk to us about what kind of heat gets pulled off, and where does the heat go? And essentially the heat is, where does the heat go, and how much of it?
Yeah, the heat's being rejected to the atmosphere. And so, I mean, if you're using, say, for round numbers, if you're using 100 megawatts of electrical power, and maybe you need 30 megawatts of cooling equipment to be able to keep that 100 megawatts of IT equipment in the condition that you need it to be, then yeah, so that's 130 megawatts. I mean, now kind of with some nominal amount, but you're talking about that kind of amount of heat rejection that's going to the atmosphere in most cases.
And what's that powering? Like, what's 100 megawatts powering? Is that like when I'm chat GPTing, or is that like what gets us to that level of power?
So I mean, those kind of power numbers go into just the cloud in general, not necessarily AI. I mean, the servers that are running all these applications and workloads for people and businesses around the world use a lot of power on their own. And then AI, the model training and the inferencing that the models get used for after they've been trained, that just kind of takes it up a whole nother level where you're using even more power.
So 100 megawatts, by the way, is 2 small modular reactors, or like, Aalo makes their 50 megawatts each. So that's to get an idea.
So I come from a HVAC family, so I'm trying to envision. I can imagine server boxes and server farms in a building with a lot of server. I watch Silicon Valley. Where's the water cooling happening? Does the water come right into the cabinets?
So there are several ways that data centers will do that, depending on the climate that they're in. And I mean, so there are some data centers that have been designed from the ground up, and this is a more recent thing as water usage has become more of an issue, where you'll have an air-cooled chiller. So you've got a big air conditioning unit essentially that's cooling a chill water loop that you're sending around the building. And then that chill water is being used in air handlers in your data hall to cool off the air that's getting circulated through the IT equipment. There's a lot of stuff out there now about with the power density of the GPUs, you need to get liquid cooling directly to the rack in a lot of cases. So instead of distributing water around to the rooms, you're distributing water around, or some other liquid around, to individual racks. To, in some cases, you have like cold plate touching chip, cold plates getting cooled by liquid, and then liquid is being cooled by the building's chill water system.
Wow. But when the water is used, I've heard people say, well, again, I'm not going to, it uses a lot of water to cool my AI searches. So can you help us with a misconception? Does the water, after cooling down the equipment, does it evaporate and gone forever, or is it recycled?
Yeah, so typically if you're using water in that way, so say you have water cooled chillers instead of air cooled chillers. So now, instead of your chiller just rejecting heat to the atmosphere, it's ejecting heat to a condenser water system that is circulating through cooling towers. And so those are the same commercial cooling towers as you'll see on a shopping mall or a hospital or any other big industrial facility, where you got a lot of volume to cool. That's where you're using water, because you gotta bring water in from the utility to evaporate in your cooling tower to pull the heat out of the condenser water system that is cooling your chillers.
I think like the electricity part of this problem is very complicated. I think the water part is going to get solved pretty quickly because like I know where we live, a lot of people they use geothermal heat for their houses. So all summer they're pulling heat out of the air through a heat exchanger, pumping that heat into the ground. And you dig wells, and the ground it stores. It's not the best storage mechanism, but like you go down and you put heat into the ground, and then that ground in the winter you're pulling heat from the ground and putting it back into your house in the winter and heating your houses. So like I just think these data centers are popping up so fast they're not even thinking about that. And but like so I think that the heat aspect we're eventually going to find better especially in the cold climates. You can use all the ambient heat to heat buildings, to heat office spaces, to heat all these kind of things. We had a coal power plant in our town that instead of using the condensing towers they would just pump the steam into like the prison, the whatever, and use all that ambient heat to heat things. So
yeah, I've actually read about that starting to happen in Europe. I think it's in the Netherlands where they're using rejected heat for like residential heating in the winter. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so the solution to use less water for data centers is to use more electricity, because the reason to use the water cooled chiller instead of the air cooled chiller is that you can use that evaporative action to be more efficient and use less electricity.
no, that's this is all my wheel stuff here.
More nuclear, yeah. More,
Yeah, exactly. So it all comes full circle. We
Nuclear.
these modular reactors.
Just one last point to all that. Kevin answered if I was going to have a follow-up question, Kevin answered it earlier. Like you would think to put all the data centers in colder climates to negate all of these heat issues, but the latency issues, like, if you have all these stuff in the cold climates, like, where Sarah wants to live in Miami, they would have low ping rates and her Fortnite times would be terrible.
Yeah, they're terrible. Yeah,
that-
terrible.
That would stink.
Yeah,
Do you have time for another question?
Yes, sir.
yeah. One more.
So, Kevin, if you would, let's shift to the sort of the business side. I don't know how much visibility you have into it, but like why are data centers such a hot topic now? Why are people wanting to build so many? Is it really driven by AI? And what's that kind of development look like from where you're sitting?
Yeah, I mean, the data center industry was growing very rapidly before ChatGPT came out, and then everybody saw ChatGPT, and I think all of the cloud companies, the data center owner operators that were building and were already building at a pretty significant rate were like, wow, we need to go back to the drawing board and talk to all of the electrical utilities and the grid providers and say like, hey, we need to get the infrastructure growing. I mean, it was already growing as fast as it could, and we just need to level step that up even farther to support the kind of load growth that they see the future of their businesses requiring. And so I think that's raised a lot of eyebrows and gotten a lot of people moving in that direction. And that's yeah, I mean, if the predictions for how AI is going to grow and impact all of our lives and businesses in the coming decades, then we need the infrastructure in place to be able to support that. And that infrastructure is utilities generating electricity, transmission and distribution, getting it to data centers, and then data centers running those applications and workloads to support all the stuff that people are doing with AI and just generally with the cloud.
Kevin, can you just real quick, last question, but are you allowed to say how many megawatts your data center is, and just maybe a rough, like, how big the building is, with, like, just so people in their mind could start like, okay, I have a visual of this now.
So typical cloud data centers are like an individual building uses in the tens of megawatts, and then you might have campuses that have several of those buildings kind of all within one fence. So, and that's growing now. People talk about gigawatt campuses now, the way that they talked about 100 megawatt campuses 2 or 3 years ago. And yeah, the growth is pretty explosive.
That's crazy. So
All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have. Kevin Fuller, data center guru.
and commander,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Commander. And then Naval Reserves. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your service. We'll let you get back to bodybuilding in the background. I've been admiring all the weights in the background.
Claire's like trying to flex a shot there.
Oh gosh, I need to get back in.
Are those 50s or 60s, Hooper?
Yeah, exactly. So, but thanks, Kevin. Really a pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
And thanks to all of and thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in today. I really appreciate everybody liking, subscribing, and sharing with all of your networks. So thank you.